Today, we're diving into the gritty heart of the Western genre, the gunfight. These explosive confrontations have defined Western cinema for decades, showcasing everything from technical innovation to raw emotional power. What makes a gunfight scene truly brutal isn't just the body count, it's the emotional impact, the cinematic execution, and the lasting impression it leaves on audiences. I've scoured through countless Western films to bring you the 9 most brutal, impactful gunfight scenes ever committed to film. Before we begin, a quick note on my selection criteria. I've considered visual impact, historical significance, cinematic innovation, and cultural influence. And of course, I've included timestamps for each scene if you want to check them out for yourself.
At number 9, we have the final confrontation from Kevin Costner's Open Range, a film that revitalized the Western genre in the early 2000s. What sets this gunfight apart is its commitment to realism. Unlike many Hollywood shootouts, this one is chaotic, messy, and geographically coherent. Costner, who also directed, wanted to show how a real gunfight in a small Western town might actually unfold, with missed shots, confusion, and real consequences. The scene begins with Charlie Waite, Costner, and boss Spearman, Robert Duvall, facing off against corrupt rancher Denton Baxter and his men. What follows is nearly 6 minutes of intense, realistic gunplay. The sound design deserves special mention. Each gunshot is deafening and distinct, without the typical Hollywood embellishments. Costner uses wide shots to establish the geography of the town, allowing viewers to understand exactly where each character is positioned. This spatial awareness makes the violence feel more immediate and consequential. The brutality comes not just from the body count, but from the unflinching way death is portrayed. When characters are shot, they don't just clutch their chest and fall dramatically. They suffer, they bleed, and sometimes they linger. It's a stark reminder of the real human cost of violence that many Westerns gloss over. Quentin Tarantino's revisionist Western Django Unchained brings us our number 8 entry with the explosive Candyland Massacre. This scene represents a modern reinterpretation of Western violence, filtered through Tarantino's distinctive style. After Calvin Candy is killed, Django unleashes a balletic display of gunplay that's as visually stunning as it is brutally violent. What makes this gunfight unique is its cathartic nature. After watching the horrors of slavery throughout the film, there's an undeniable satisfaction in seeing Django exact his revenge. Tarantino amplifies this through exaggerated blood splatter effects and stylized shooting sequences. The technical execution is masterful. The use of slow motion, the dynamic camera movements, and the carefully choreographed action all contribute to the scene's impact. The soundtrack, featuring John Legend's Who Did That to You, adds another layer of emotional resonance. This scene sparked controversy upon release for its graphic violence, but it serves a narrative purpose, representing the righteous fury of a man reclaiming his freedom and dignity through the very tools of violence that were used to oppress him. While Django Unchained is set before the traditional Western era, its influence on the genre and its reinterpretation of Western tropes earn it a place on this list. At number 7, we have the iconic Final Duel from Sergio Leone's For a Few Dollars More, a masterclass in tension and release. The three-way standoff between Monco, Clint Eastwood, Colonel Mortimer, Lee Van Cleef, and the villainous El Indio, Gian Maria Volonté, is a study in suspense. Leone stretches time to an excruciating degree, cutting between extreme close-ups of eyes, hands hovering over guns, and sweating faces. What makes this scene particularly brutal isn't the quantity of violence, but its quality and emotional weight. The duel is synchronized to the chiming of a musical pocket watch, a device that carries deep emotional significance for both Mortimer and El Indio. Leone's revolutionary use of extreme close-ups forces viewers into uncomfortable intimacy with the characters at their most vulnerable moment. We see every twitch, every bead of sweat, every micro-expression of fear and determination. Ennio Morricone's score deserves special mention, with the pocket watch melody building to an unbearable crescendo before the guns finally fire. When the violence does come, it's swift and definitive, a stark contrast to the extended buildup. This scene cemented Eastwood's iconic gunslinger persona and influenced countless Western standoffs that followed. Its brutal efficiency and psychological intensity make it one of the most memorable gunfights in cinema history. Our 6th entry comes from another Sergio Leone masterpiece, Once Upon a Time in the West, with the final confrontation between Harmonica and Frank at Sweetwater. This scene represents Leone perfecting the techniques he pioneered in his Dollars trilogy. The face-off between Charles Bronson's mysterious harmonica and Henry Fonda's villainous Frank is the culmination of a revenge story decades in the making. What elevates this gunfight is how Leone integrates flashbacks with the present confrontation. As the two men circle each other, we finally learn harmonica's motivation through fragmentary glimpses of a past atrocity. The revelation that Frank forced a young harmonica to support his brother's weight on his shoulders while standing on a wobbly rock, with a harmonica placed in his mouth to keep him entertained, is one of cinema's great reveals. The brutality here is both physical and psychological. When the guns finally fire, the violence is almost secondary to the emotional catharsis of harmonica's long-awaited revenge. Leone's composition is impeccable. The vast landscape contrasting with tight close-ups creates a sense of both epic scale and intimate personal drama. Ennio Morricone's score once again plays a crucial role, with harmonica's signature melancholy theme reaching its crescendo as justice is finally served. This scene influenced generations of filmmakers in its perfect marriage of music, visuals, and emotional storytelling. At the halfway point of our countdown is the revolutionary final shootout from Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch, a scene that forever changed how violence was portrayed in cinema. When Pike Bishop utters the line, "Let's go," to his remaining gang members, what follows is an orgy of violence unprecedented in Western cinema up to that point. The aging outlaws, choosing to go out in a blaze of glory rather than abandon their captured comrade, take on an entire Mexican army. Peckinpah's technical innovations make this scene particularly impactful. He used multiple cameras filming at different speeds, then edited the footage together to create a disorienting, visceral experience. The liberal use of squibs and fake blood, shocking for 1969 audiences, created a realistic portrayal of bullet impacts that had never been seen before. The brutality is relentless and democratic. Men, women, and even innocent bystanders are caught in the crossfire. Peckinpah doesn't allow viewers to enjoy the violence as entertainment. Instead, he forces them to confront its ugly, chaotic reality. What makes this scene truly devastating is its nihilistic undertone. These aren't heroes dying for a noble cause. They're violent men choosing a violent end because they know they belong to a dying era. It's a commentary on the end of the Wild West itself and the mythologizing of violence in American culture. This scene was highly controversial upon release, but has since been recognized as a watershed moment in cinema history, influencing filmmakers from Scorsese to Tarantino.
For our fourth entry, we'll be observing the movie Tombstone. This movie has perhaps the most famous gunfight in Western history, the showdown at the OK Corral. What makes this scene remarkable is how it balances historical accuracy with cinematic excitement. The actual gunfight lasted only about 30 seconds and involved just 30 shots, facts that the film acknowledges while still creating an intensely dramatic sequence. Director George P. Cosmatos builds unbearable tension in the moments before the first shot. The Earp brothers and Doc Holliday walk determinedly toward their confrontation with the cowboys. When the violence erupts, it's chaotic and confined, historically accurate for the small lot where the actual gunfight took place. The camera stays close to the action, creating a sense of claustrophobia as men fire at near point-blank range. Val Kilmer's performance as the tuberculosis-stricken Doc Holliday adds another layer of brutality to the scene. Despite his illness, Doc is the most effective fighter, displaying a casual deadliness that's both fascinating and disturbing. The aftermath is equally important. The psychological toll on the survivors, particularly Wyatt Earp, sets up the film's final act. This isn't portrayed as a clean victory, but as a messy, complicated event with lasting consequences. This scene's influence extends beyond cinema. It has shaped the public's understanding of one of the most famous events in Western history, for better or worse.
Our third entry takes a more contemplative approach to Western violence, with a train robbery sequence from the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Unlike the explosive gunfights we've seen so far, this scene derives its brutality from atmosphere and implication. Director Andrew Dominik and cinematographer Roger Deakins create a dreamlike quality as Jesse James's gang waits to ambush a train in the dead of night. The visual composition is stunning, silhouetted figures against the night sky, the train's headlight cutting through the darkness like a searchlight, and the eerie wooden masks worn by the robbers. When the train finally arrives, it's almost a supernatural presence, wreathed in steam and light. The actual violence is sparse but impactful. When Jesse and his men board the train, there's an overwhelming sense of menace. Brad Pitt's performance as Jesse James is particularly chilling, his casual demeanor making his sudden bursts of violence all the more shocking. What makes this scene brutal is not the quantity of bloodshed, but the psychological terror it portrays. The passenger's fear is palpable as masked men move through the train cars. When Jesse beats a man he believes has recognized him, the violence feels intimate and personal in a way that larger gunfights often don't. This scene represents a modern approach to Western violence, one that emphasizes psychological impact over body count and uses cutting-edge cinematography to create a mood of impending doom. Our runner-up is the devastating, climactic shootout from Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven, a scene that serves as both a deconstruction and culmination of the Western genre. After learning of his friend Ned's death, reformed killer William Money reverts to his old ways, entering Big Whiskey's saloon to confront Sheriff Little Bill Daggett and his deputies. What follows is one of cinema's most sobering portrayals of violence. What makes this scene particularly brutal is its moral complexity. Eastwood strips away any glamour or excitement from the gunfight, instead showing it as a grim, ugly business. When Money declares, "I've killed women and children, I've killed just about everything that walks or crawls at one time or another," it's not a boast, but a confession. The technical execution is deliberately understated, no fancy camera moves or stylized action. Instead, Eastwood uses straightforward compositions and natural lighting to create an almost documentary-like quality. The violence happens quickly and messily, with none of the balletic grace seen in other Western gunfights. Gene Hackman's performance as Little Bill adds another layer of complexity. Despite being the antagonist, his fear in his final moments is deeply human, asking, "I don't deserve this, to die like this." Money's cold response, "Deserves got nothing to do with it," encapsulates the film's unflinching view of frontier justice. This scene represents Eastwood's commentary on his own career in Westerns and the genre's problematic glorification of violence. It's a brutal, unforgettable sequence that forces viewers to confront the moral cost of the vengeance that so many Westerns celebrate. And finally, at number 1, we have what is arguably the most famous gunfight in cinema history, the cemetery standoff from Sergio Leone's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. What makes this scene so extraordinary is that it stretches a simple three-way standoff into nearly 7 minutes of pure cinematic tension. Leone's mastery of pacing is on full display as Blondie, Angel Eyes, and Tuco circle each other in Sad Hill Cemetery, each knowing only 2 will walk away. The scene's construction is mathematical in its precision. Leone uses a combination of extreme close-ups, eyes, hands, holsters, medium shots establishing the triangular positioning of the gunfighters, and breathtaking wide shots showing the vast cemetery with its thousands of graves, a visual reminder of the stakes. Ennio Morricone's iconic score, The Ecstasy of Gold and The Trio, is inseparable from the scene's impact. The music builds in intensity, creating an almost unbearable tension before the lightning-fast resolution. The brutality here isn't in excessive bloodshed, only one character dies, but in the psychological warfare that precedes the violence. Each man knows the rules of this deadly game, and Leone forces viewers to experience every excruciating second of their calculation and fear. When the guns finally do fire, the sequence is over in seconds, a stark contrast to the extended buildup. This structure has influenced countless films beyond Westerns, from action movies to thrillers. This scene represents cinema at its most pure and powerful, telling a story through images, music, and editing with minimal dialogue. Its cultural impact is immeasurable, having been referenced and parodied countless times in the decades since its release. And there you have it, the 9 most brutal gunfight scenes in Western movie history. From Sergio Leone's operatic standoffs to Sam Peckinpah's revolutionary violence to Clint Eastwood's moral deconstruction, these scenes showcase the evolution of how violence has been portrayed in the Western genre. What's fascinating is how these gunfights reflect changing attitudes toward violence in American cinema. Early Westerns often portrayed gunfights as clean, heroic affairs. By the late 1960s, filmmakers like Peckinpah were showing the ugly, chaotic reality of violence. Modern Westerns continue this tradition, using gunfights to explore complex moral questions, rather than simple good versus evil narratives. The influence of these scenes extends far beyond Westerns. You can see echoes of Leone's standoffs in everything from Star Wars to Reservoir Dogs, and Peckinpah's editing techniques have become standard in action films worldwide. What are your thoughts? Did I miss any brutal Western gunfights that deserve recognition? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into Western cinema, Be sure to like this video and subscribe for more content exploring the rich history of the Western genre. Until next time, this is Slow Dusk, signing off.